One of the most popular genres of the 40s, 50s, and 60s was the Western. Whether it was on TV or in the movies, the cowboy and Indian dramas were a staple of entertainment, and every studio in Hollywood churned them out. Likewise, the 70s was a decade dominated by disaster movies, a genre characterized by catastrophic events such as crashing airplanes, cruise ships, blimps, and people ate it up, loving the heroic action and dramatic tension. However, those on top are the biggest subject of ridicule, both as an homage and as a way to take down the leader from the mountain. And so when Blazing Saddles was released in 1974 and Airplane in 1980, it was as if David killed Goliath. It's time to explore two spoof movies that killed the genre of popular dramas: Blazing Saddles and Airplane. Genre killers. Let's start by delving into how the 70s were dominated by disaster movies. Films like The Poseidon Adventure, Earthquake, The Towering Inferno, and a string of airport movies, each about an airplane about to crash. These movies all followed a predictable pattern. A catastrophic event strikes, a diverse group of characters are introduced, they unite and overcome the disaster, emphasizing heroism and sacrifice. But in 1980, when the comedy Airplane took the film industry by storm, it marked the end of the disaster movie genre as we know it. Directed by Jim Abrams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker, Airplane was a departure from the conventional disaster movie plot by parodying the disaster movie genre with humor and making fun of their cliches, their characters, and the situations that were typical of disaster films.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking.
The plot of Airplane is ridiculously simple, and it's really just a placeholder for gags. An airplane takes off in flight, and all of the pilots get sick, and there's no way to land the plane. So an old war veteran is forced to land a plane that he doesn't know how to land. That's it, except for the 200 or 300 or so gags that make fun of every single aspect of the genre. In Airplane, the characters were intentionally exaggerated stereotypes. The film took what we all expected, which is an overly serious pilot and an array of different types of passengers, and made them all ridiculous, poking fun at the predictable personas that we've already seen in these disaster movies. It mocked the melodrama and the tension. Even though it was a disaster movie, at no point in the movie Airplane did you truly ever feel there was any peril. Where disaster movies are known for their intense emotional scenes and high-stake drama, Airplane turned this on its head by creating absurd and comical situations out of these seemingly intense moments.
What a pisser.
The film also cast real-life tough guys to play the serious roles, even though it was a comedy, and told them to basically act as if they were their straight tough guy personas, just with ridiculous dialogue.
You ever seen a grown man naked?
Peter Graves, who was known famously at this time for his role in Mission Impossible, suddenly plays Captain Over, who seems to be talking to a young kid in a completely inappropriate way.
You ever hang around a gymnasium?
Lloyd Bridges, normally known for his tough guy westerns such as High Noon, comes in as a stern, tough leader to try to save the airplane. But throughout the film, he slowly unravels, picking up cigarettes, drinking, and ultimately sniffing glue. Robert Stack as Rex Kramer, famously known for playing Elliot Ness in The Untouchables, plays his role completely seriously amongst everything around him. And even the doctor on board, a disaster movie trope who was supposed to give people comfort, was played by Leslie Nielsen, who was unknown at the time, but to anybody who had seen The Poseidon Adventure, knew he was the captain.
When I order all lifelines, make that include SeaDeck. See to it.
Aye, sir.
But then as soon as you mix that seriousness with so much ridiculousness, how do you go back to making a serious movie without the comic tropes around it? How do you make another airport movie with a straight face, when not a single person in the movie theater will take it as dramatic face value? Eventually, the genre just had to say that the spoof was too tough an act to follow and couldn't make them anymore. And comically, Airplane changed the landscape of comedy films. Its success led to a wave of similar parody movies in the 80s and 90s, thus making it harder for almost all dramas to succeed if they had any tropes that fell into the Airplane bucket.
Chomp don't want to help, Chomp don't get to help.
But as big as Airplane was in the 1980s, there was actually a bigger genre killer that had come before it in 1974 in the way of Blazing Saddles. The Western genre was the epitome of American cinema. But after the release of Blazing Saddles in 1974, saw a steady decline in popularity, due in large part to what Mel Brooks had done in depicting a comic version of a Western. Mel Brooks' irreverent comedy not only mocked traditional tropes of Western movies, but it also challenged the genre's inherent racial and social stereotypes. During the mid-20th century, Westerns were not only box office hits, but cultural touchstones. Films like Stagecoach and High Noon were critical in box office stardom, and actors like John Wayne, a staple of Western movies, was one of the biggest stars of its time. Then Blazing Saddles, directed by Mel Brooks, took a radically different approach to storytelling the Western, poking fun at every convention, every character, and every theme.
Have you ever seen such cruelty?
Now, the plot of Blazing Saddles is a little more complex than, say, Airplane was. A corrupt businessman needs to put his railroad through a small town. So in an attempt to get people to leave, this businessman hires the one person that the town hates, an African-American sheriff. However, it backfires on him, because ultimately, the black sheriff winds up winning over the town.
Oh, what a nice guy.
And this plot tackled racism head-on, using the humor to expose the absurdity of racial prejudice. If you've ever seen the film Searchers, young Natalie Wood is kidnapped by Native Americans, and John Wayne is searching to find her. However, he's not searching to bring her back. He's searching out to kill her, because in his opinion, she may already be poisoned by the Native American cultural ways. As ridiculous as that sounds today, that was the generalized point of view of Westerns. Good guys versus bad guys, white people versus everybody else, and there isn't much in the middle. So when Blazing Saddles makes its lead character a black sheriff who ultimately becomes beloved in the small white town, the film was already turning Western themes on its head.
Mungo like candy.
But beyond the racial stereotype issue, Blazing Saddles also portrayed hyper-masculine roles by subverting the archetype and featuring protagonists that weren't really the John Waynes. Sheriff Bart was played by Cleavon Little, and instead of alpha male tough guy, he was intelligent, witty, and capable, but completely defying the traditional Western hero mold. Similarly, Gene Wilder was the last person you'd think of when you heard of a sharpshooter like the Waco Kid. And therefore, the movie sort of took toxic masculinity as the enemy of everybody else. Then there's just really good Mel Brooks jokes. You had an ignorant, idiotic governor. You had the corrupt businessman and his sidekick, Taggart. The pointless toll booth that seems to stop an entire army of cowboys. The Indians who spoke Yiddish. And then, of course, there's Breaking the Fourth Wall. The film went beyond mere parody, directly addressing the film as a film when it explodes on the Warner Brothers lot. And much like Airplane, where all of the passengers on the plane are spoofs, jokes, and stereotypes, the town of Rock Ridge was filled with the same thing. A cranky old lady, crazy reverend, a man who spoke gibberish. Perhaps Airplane would not have existed if it wasn't for Blazing Saddles. Now, Blazing Saddles and Airplane aren't the only two spoofs that killed a drama. Lord knows Mel Brooks continued down this successful path as he tried to do films like Young Frankenstein, High Anxiety, spoofing Alfred Hitchcock, Spaceballs, and even Robin Hood Men in Tights, among others. And Zucker Abrams Zucker would, of course, do the classic Naked Gun, but nonetheless, Airplane and Blazing Saddles stand as a testament of the power of comedy to provoke thought, challenge norms, and reshape the cinematic landscape. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and how about giving the channel a subscribe so you don't miss any more of my future videos. And if you can't wait for any more of my future videos, take a look at these other movie essays right here that you can watch right now.
Boris! I've got a special. When can you work him in?
I couldn't possibly sneak him in until Monday, sir. I'm booked solid.